Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start with I love you. And I don't know if you hear that often. I don't. I don't. I don't hear I love you to me at all. Holy shit, last time I heard somebody say I love you was I think my grandma, Habibi. She passed away last year. Well, that started on an awkward note, but I do love you. And in fact, for whoever's watching and who's not watching, I'm actually watching myself while I'm talking to you as well. So that love is also to me. But yeah, so the day I started doing these videos, I want to say is honestly the day I was able to, no, the day I started writing these notes is honestly the day that I kind of like took charge of my thinking process and took charge of every single thing that goes through my mind. And some of you I'm sharing it with, so I fucking love you guys. Now, emotions are corny and they make us feel awkward. I know. I can see that. Let us do a video today. Why the fuck not? Zahli is an area in Lebanon. So let's just say a place and the creek. That's the title. See? Zahli and the creek. Which generates power and how people did it without the government. Wait for it. And the reason why I started doing my work. The market is valid. The market is the valid way to do business. Okay, so like I have principles. The creek that generates power and how people did it without the government. And the reason why I started doing my work, the market is the way to do business. So let's highlight a few things. First things first, there's a place in Lebanon. Lebanon is a country like any other. And its shit is more third world. Like we don't actually have money. We don't have we steal all the money funds that come to electricity. We don't manage our resources in any good way. Look at it this way: 30% of Lebanon works under the government, and another 30% works under the political parties who run the government. So you're talking about 60% of the population that is getting paid from government money, either through the theft of government through the political parties or the theft of government through the government itself. So naturally, there's a small area or a beautiful area in Lebanon that basically just found a way to utilize a creek that basically has high amounts of like water in the rainy season when it's raining in winter. And what they did was they started generating electricity. Their response was, "Fuck you, government. We can do it ourselves." And that's inspiring to me, man. Right? Like, what would have the government have done? No, we want to do it. Go fuck off. You'll ruin it. They ended up doing it, and they give electricity to all the areas, and. So it's one of those beautiful. We'll do it ourselves. Still, the actual municipality is the one that did it. So technically, it's a government group. But hey, man, props to them. They kind of like found a way to just get over the bureaucracy and all the bullshit and crap that normally happens. But why was it inspiring? I remember that day because me and two people, I was telling people that I was there and my cousin and his friend. And he was explaining to me how basically how they actually did this. And I got inspired because I remembered the reason why I was building my project is specifically because I believe out of principle, which is the second thing we're going to highlight, is the free market reigns supreme. And I know everyone's going to be like, no, but you have to kind of like push and pull in certain directions. I really don't agree because we can't see the market as a tug of war. If we're going to see it, we're going to have to see it as like, what do they call it? The balancer. Like when you put a kilo here and then you put stuff here to measure them. What do they call it? Uh, something justice thingy, mawarif, old school weight measure during devices. But yeah, so I'm the kind of guy that believes that the market is not really small, is not really a push and pull, but it's more of a scale. Yes, it's called a scale. I had to Google this shit. So, so I believe the free market is more of a scale, but then I still think that's a narrow-minded approach. Why? Because ultimately what we're doing when we're doing this, it's a two-dimensional scale. But I don't think that's the case because human beings are very versatile and our physical existence is three-dimensional. So I believe it's more like a disk and it kind of like moves wobbly. It's like instead of this, basically, it moves like this, right? With a center that always keeps it at balance. And so think about it this way. A push and pull is basically, the Tao talks about it beautifully. The more there are laws, the less moral people become. Simply because I don't have to consider these things, I just follow the law. And other people basically that have it in them not to follow the law, that small rebellious part of them. The more laws they are, the more you see rebellious people because a lot more people are going to like disregard these laws. So technically, like you're pulling on one side by adding more laws, and they're pulling on another side by breaking. More laws are there to be broken, so the balance is a pull to the other side. Whilst the scale is generally just kind of like allowing the people to kind of like lose their morality within like the certain constraints of human nature, but also have them kind of like be regulated by their own behavior. And it's funny because like human beings are not weak, man. I can go deeper into this because I really believe I really see the whole justice system as flawed, and it's I would rather the Wild West style kind of like the law protects the people under it, and if you're not basically under the law, you could be an outlaw. It doesn't mean you're a criminal. You're just not protected by the law. And I think that's very valid in terms of a free market. But let's not go to that like direction or like further from we started. From an economics standpoint, the free market does reign supreme. And that's where the push and pull kind of like is forcibly like, it's just like financial institutions are forcing more money in so that we don't collapse. But what they do is they create more inflation. So when the time comes for a collapse, they either print 5 to 10 times more money, just like we saw 2, 3 years ago, or the collapse is going to be 5, 10 times worse than it would have been before. So let's look at it from that direction. And ultimately, I feel like that kind of like approach that people actually pulling from one side by putting more money in when money shouldn't have been pulled. And the banking system that has been failing over the past 60 years should have just been allowed to fail and given us the opportunity to be more creative, to do something new. Which is why I was inspired by these people because they were reliant on the government for so long until like the government has sucked and failed so horribly to a point where they had no choice but to get creative and be their own selves again. And so what happened was they became uber creative, and now they are a bigger support to the people than the government ever was, simply because they were squeezed to a point. Because initially they trusted in the government. So what they did was they relinquished their own responsibilities and started blaming the government. So that's the rest of Lebanon, except like a few areas. What they did was they kind of like started leaving the responsibility to fend for themselves and be creative and grow and evolve, and started placing it in people's hands. And again, like, that's a lot of weight, man, especially for people that are not really incompetent, but most of their work is to keep people liking them instead of to actually change. And people don't like change. So ultimately, a politician's job is generally just to make sure that people still like them. Because anytime they change, people are not going to like them. And most of the time, they have to like waste time on the people instead of wasting time on their actual work. I firmly believe that, other than the fact that if you're not evolving on a monthly basis, daily basis, yearly basis, you're going to be redundant, which is going to create toxicity. So Robin Williams, God rest his soul, once said, politicians are just like diapers. They have to be changed often, right? Because they become useless super fast. It's fucking amazing. But anyways, so just an inspiring story that wanted me to talk about the free market. I generally believe that we always, at the extremes, we always find our balance. And if anything, it's just like how life kind of like teaches us lessons is by showing us a traumatic experience that allows our energy to kind of shift to a different perspective instead of kind of like going in the same destructive force. And if we look at humanity as a whole, there's a lot more elements to the balance than just kind of like up or down. And I wanted to talk about this, and I'm very proud of my people, or at the very least the people in this area that kind of like took charge. Thank you guys.